You're listening to Business Success in a Virtual World podcast. If you are a leader navigating these new immersive technologies, this is your definitive resource to understand the innovative power of XR, VR, and AR. I'm Tim Beharon, Chairman of Creative Strategies, and I'm joined by Barton Goldenberg, President of ISM Guide. In each episode, we navigate through new products, effective strategies, and highlight actual business case studies implementing extended reality into business processes. Our resource website now boasts over 300 case studies, 300 articles, and 100 videos presenting successful examples of businesses using these technology in field service, training, digital twins, customer service, in medical and manufacturing, and so much more. Check out the website at ismguide.com. Now, on to the next episode. This week, we are pleased to have with us Dr. Harvey Castro, a noted physician and an excellent expert on what's going on in AI and the role of AI and VR in the medical field. So, Dr. Castro, let me toss it to you to first have you introduce yourself and a little bit of background of what you've done and what you are doing now, because you've become a significant authority on this subject, that many people are reaching out to you for commentary as well as information. So share with us again a little bit about your historical background as a emergency doctor, and then how you got interested in all of these types of technology issues related to medicine.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. I sincerely appreciate it. This is a true honor for me. My background is I've been really blessed. I'm an emergency room physician for now over 20 years. I've also been able to run companies where I was able to start a hospital system and grow it to 350 employees. So at one point I had a staffing company, my own hospital, emergency rooms, billing company. So I really understand from a C-suite point of view. And then you combine that 20 years of emergency medicine, being in those front lines, taking care of patients. But then technology has always been this passion of mine. And so to give you a quick example, when the first iPhone came out, I wrote the first IV meds app where you could tap 3 times and it would give you the dose for a patient. And then fast forward, now with AI, there's this thing, and I jokingly say, because everybody knows what I'm about to say, is ChatGPT that came out, and I was literally in this office playing on the computer, and ChatGPT was on my website, and I decided, let me test this thing out, and my mind blew up to the point where I literally, within seconds, decided I'm going to write a book on how to use ChatGPT in healthcare back in 2022. And so fast forward, today, the country of Singapore has hired me as an advisor for digital health for Singapore. The Texas Medical Association has called me and said, hey, we want you as an advisor for our board. And so different companies around the world are calling me to just talk to them about AI in healthcare. And so I'm really, really blessed in that I'm able to now look at these 3 worlds that I've been in and really just combine them and contribute to the world.
Barton?
Well, I want to thank you for that. And I really just want to get into the questions because you've got background and you've got so much to share with us. So let me ask you this question, Harvey. What are the top 3 opportunities to apply both AI and in particular VR and AR today in the medical industry?
Yes, sir. Well, let me give you the top 3 in my opinion. The first one is medical training and education. And I'm going to list out the 3, and then I really want to go into really quick specifics. So we got medical training and education. We have patient treatment rehab. And then the last is surgical planning and assistance in no particular order. My passion is in education and medical training, so I'm going to start with that. One of the scariest things as a resident, as a medical student, is this famous saying, it's see one, do one, teach one. And at the beginning, that sounds fun, but could you imagine never have done a certain procedure in medicine, intubating a patient, doing some life-saving event, and they say, okay, Harvey, you just saw that procedure, now you do it. And then after you do it, turn around and be like, okay, now you're going to teach your colleague next to you how to do it. Oh my gosh, that is freaking me out already, just even talking about it. But imagine having VR, AR, and now with the Apple Vision Pro where it can actually see through and being able to put this on and do 100 simulations practicing. It's giving me feedback on my technique. Am I going too slow? Am I going too fast? What am I hesitating? What are my questions? I now have done it 100 times virtually. I think that is the way to go. And on the education side, that explains that. That explains the medical training. But let's flip that on the other side. What if you're a patient that just refuses to take your medicine, refuses to control your blood pressure? But now I put on these VR glasses on you and be like, let's go through your heart together. Let's look at your CAT scan, but in a 3D structure. And let's see what you're doing to your heart arteries. And let's look how these are clogged. And look at the pathophysiology. And that sounds like a fancy word, but let me show you the damage. I'm going to take my meds now. So I really think using these patient treatment and rehab, the same thing. If you're able to put on these VR glasses and say you have PTSD and it's treating you to desensitize you to certain trauma that you've had, and being able to go into that safe VR environment and train your brain to remodel the way you see things. And physical rehab, the same thing. If you're trying to rehab yourself, but I really believe your mind is so strong. So if you could put on these glasses and see yourself walking and see you taking those steps, and then you're working and you're rehabbing your muscle and you're retraining your body, or you've had a stroke where maybe you can't move a certain part of your body, but you can train it and rewire it, but then you're using the VR to help those channels. Then the last example is that surgical planning and assistance. The same thing. Imagine I'm taking care of you, but I have your digital twin and I have you down to all your specs, and I'm able to now do surgery and practice on you before I even met you. And now I've done that procedure. And let's just say it's a heart procedure, something that is very specific to you. Maybe your anatomy, there's a couple of turns and a couple of things that are just a little different than I'm used to. But now I'm able to practice those and correct for, or as I'm going in, the VR is telling me, hey, this anatomy is a little different. You may want to consider this technique versus that. And so I'm really excited how this really will save lives and will help us.
This is great, Harvey. I'm just going to make a comment. This concept of medical training and being able to do something 100 times before you actually do it. What pilot would fly an airplane without going through simulation? It's the same concept. So, it's just so logical to me. The University of Pennsylvania has launched a very important patient treatment and rehab program. They're actually using it now for pre and post cancer treatment, oncology treatment for children, readying the children to understand what's going to happen, and then helping the children to feel relaxed throughout the whole operation and post operation. And they're even using it to help people understand post operation what happened. So these are just up and coming things. Tim and I have done a couple of episodes. One is on Mayo Clinic, where all of the incoming doctors are obliged to work on VR and AR capabilities, so they're better trained to live in an immersive world and do the things you're talking about. And we did one on VR, the latest advancements in VR and surgery. And as you've already alluded to, more and more, whether it's back surgery, whether it's there's all kinds of different surgery, spinal surgery, they're doing cervical, they're doing shoulder cuff, they're doing all kinds of sort of use of what you held up, which is the Apple Vision Pro and other such means. So you're right on the mark. But now here's the question, at least as I see it. We're at the beginning of what's really, really important, and that is the application of VR, AR backed by AI. I'd like to run the clock forward to 2030 and ask you the same question. What are the top 3 opportunities for the medical industry for using or applying AI, VR, AR to the medical industry in 2030, if you'd be willing to share your thoughts?
So to elaborate, what would be the top 3 challenges in 2030? For example, number 1, everybody's concerned, especially in healthcare, is our data privacy and security. How secure are these systems? Are they really taking care of us? And is someone going to be able to hack into these systems? Could you imagine someone hacking into AR, treating post-traumatic stress disorder, and they're starting to do some harmful things to our patients because they're able to hack into it? So we got to make sure that this is secure. Or if you're dealing with a private matter that you really don't want the world to know, and they're able to hack into your VR, AR, and now all of a sudden now the world knows that you have X disease or Y. The second, as an administrator, standardizing and making sure that these things interoperate with the system, that is huge. Being able to create these standard protocols so that way our AR and VR can communicate with our electronic medical record or XY tool at our hospital system, that is really important, that we need to make sure that we do that, because that is definitely a challenge. Then the third, I call it the culture. Will users adapt to this new technology? Is the culture ready? I consult companies around the world and they say, hey, Harvey, I want to create this product and I want to do this. And my answer often back is, whoa, 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 do not do that. The culture is not ready for that. Let's start with that same idea, but let's bring it down a couple of notches, because if you present the limousine and the hospital's administrators get upset and they're like, no, we don't want that, you're done. But if we introduce a different idea, which is similar idea, but just a babier down version that they're willing to accept because the culture is ready, now we can do it. And so that'll be the three big challenges.
On that one point, do you find any resistance from, for example, some of the older doctors who've been practicing for so many years and, are not exactly willing to or excited about the next generation of technology?
I love this question, and my answer is yes. I've been able to say it's definitely, to your point, it's a cultural thing, and not to single out age, but I know that my older physicians, when I show them some of the things that technology can do, they get really upset. And one doctor in particular has told me he's willing to retire right away if that goes out to the market. And so, big picture. But with that said, I know some older doctors that are early adopters that will jump on technology, that they're more likely to do it. And so when I give this talk, I normally say, hey, if I'm in Silicon Valley talking, I usually get high fives. But not to point out Texas, because I'm in Texas, but if I go to the east part of Texas or the west part, a very not very populated area, and I give the same talk, I am worried. People give me death looks. People like hate on me, and I'm just a messenger. But my point is this: we need to be sensitive of what we introduce and where we introduce and how we introduce it.
So let me pick up on two of the points, and I actually want Tim to come back on this. So this is 2024. These are the top challenges: data security, at least in your perspective, interoperability and standardizing that so that we can work more seamlessly between the ARs and VRs and various electronic medical records, et cetera, and culture. The culture will literally, as the years move on and younger people enter the medical industry, the culture will become less of a challenge, in my opinion. It'll still be a challenge, but it'll be less of a challenge just because they've grown up and used this. I mean, in medical school and in high school, and for that matter, in elementary school. But Tim, data security and stabilizing the interoperability between AR, VR, and electronic medical records. These are really tough challenges. Harvey's raised them. How do we solve them?
Well, it is a very big issue because, first of all, as you know, we do have some standardized issues or regulations that govern a lot of that medical information. But the way that different hospitals do their actual administration and the tools they use are sometimes very different. They always have to comply with HIPAA. How they go about doing it is going to be very different by administrator to administrators. And in fact, that leads me to what was going to be my second question is, while the doctors may be hesitant, are administrators also bucking some of this?
When I talk about these tools, the answer is yes, but it's also very, very interesting. And I hate to admit this, but we're seeing a lot of surgical applications, and we're seeing neurosurgeons do it, but we're not seeing this in the emergency room. And let me give you a quick example. If I'm in the emergency room and when seconds count and I'm taking care of you, it makes sense to have something like this on where I can see the labs popping up. I can see the x-ray in real time. If I'm doing a procedure, I can literally have the x-ray, the CAT scan in front of me as I'm doing the procedure, and I can guide it. I can use that to guide me. But it's not being used in the emergency room. But it's used in neurosurgery. The day after the Apple Vision Pro came out, it was literally used in a neurosurgery case for 12 hours. Why? The answer is there's big margins in surgery. There's margins in neurosurgery. So the hospital administrator hears a doctor saying, hey, I want this toy. Yes, it's $5,000, but here you go. Emergency room is known as a part of the hospital that loses money. And so if I were to ask for a toy, more than likely, they're going to say, no, we don't have the money for that.
That's very interesting. That's a very interesting perspective. Thank you. Tim, on the data security side, I mean, it's not just to do with medicine, it's to do with anything, any and everything. And it's not to do with just VR and AR, it's to do with particularly AI as we move forward and AI gets applied to VR and AR. That's a juggernaut that's going to be tough to crack. And your thoughts now and where does this go over the next years?
Well, that's actually one of the top things that are being dealt with the major corporations, whether it be OpenAI or Google or whoever, Microsoft. And security is top of mind. They're working on it as fast as possible and as aggressively as possible. But there are all sorts of things that go on in the sense of managing security that has to be overcome. And part of it actually still has to do with standards. I think what Dr. Castro mentioned is very significant there, that there are still other standards that have to be implemented, and that would apply to what's going on in the medical field as well. That includes not only security, but ethics and other stuff with AI that's going to be a big part of it. But the ability to solve it is really, to be honest with you, part of it's going to be the increase of processing power that can actually be applied to the security to make it more difficult to get into. The more processing power you apply to this, you can actually make it more difficult for negative characters or so to actually try to break into a hospital system, etc. But it's going to be a problem for a while.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Harvey, I want to go back to the emergency room. I just am fascinated by this. So, lots of people make donations to medical causes. There may be people who've had a heart attack and they're at the Mass General Hospital and they did such a brilliant job that they're going to give them, $50,000 as a contribution. And so there's no shortage of donations to hospitals. But what's interesting is what you just said. You can flip on a set of, in this case, Apple Vision Pro. You can get your scans, you can get your images, you get your various things right there in the operating room to guide you to do a better procedure in the operating room. I'm very surprised that money hasn't flowed from those donations into the operating room.
It's interesting. And like you said eloquently, we have a certain passion and we will give money. But unfortunately, when we give that money, we're really not sure where the money is going to go once it hits that hospital. We trust the administrators are going to put that money in X, Y. And to their defense, they may be spending that money to help certain part of the intensive care to that hospital. And they're like, you know what, there's greater good if we give it to this portion. And now we're funding a clinic that is free or we're subsidized. So it's really hard to say. But with that said, obviously there's Bill Gates foundations and there's all these different things. To your point, Khan Academy got all this money from Bill Gates, and look how amazing that's doing in the educational space. And I've had no success, but I've reached out to him multiple times saying, hey, let me help you develop a medical curriculum for Khan Academy that I do free. I just want it out to the world to help. Again, it's we have the technology tools, but we need to make that connection. We need to take it to that next level.
Yeah, there's a lot of experience in applying technology to industries. The medical industry, for all kinds of reasons, HIPAA being just one of them, is not always the first to adopt to the new technologies, despite the fact that they are really very valuable for them. And challenged with how do you get a doctor, young, old, how do you get a medical administrator, allow them to feel comfortable to say, this is worth the risk. And I've always found, Harvey, in my 40 years of applying technology to these types of situations, you really have to build the case that says, listen, if you give me this, and that's the one thing you might give me, I'm going to give you 3 things back of value. And so the first thing I'm going to give you back is I'm going to do the operation of the procedure in a shorter period of time. I'm going to be able to see more patients, for example, or I'm going to be able to do it at a higher level of efficiency, and the patient's going to do better as a result of it. And so there are different things that we talk about. I refer to this as the 3X factor. I'll give you the glasses. What are you giving me back? What would be the 3X from your perspective in the emergency room for investing in those glasses, just out of curiosity?
Number one would be efficiency. being able to leverage AI. Let me give you a quick example. These are the Meta glasses, and I'm trying to get an API to talk to them. But if I were able to do predictive analytics on this, where allows me to in real time talk to the patient and then ask the AI, hey, should this patient go home or should they stay? And I know I'm getting paid to do that, but if I can use science and data from that hospital system that it already knows that these are the patients that go home and these are the ones that stay, now I can be more efficient and say, you know what, this patient actually should go or should stay, and I'm saving the hospital money. Number two, the human factor. If I'm a doctor and I haven't slept and it's 4 a.m. and I try to sleep during the day and I do my best to drink coffee, I am not at my 100%. And do you as a patient deserve not to get 100%? The bottom line is I'm human. But now I have these technology, AI, these glasses, and I can talk to the AI and say, hey, patient has XYZ. Then the AI says, hey, have you considered XYZ instead? And I'm like, oh, crud. I totally forgot about that because it's 4 a.m. I don't have the brain power, but I have the muscle memory, but I don't have that at 4 a.m. And so taking care of that gap, that human gap with AI to help me leverage to take care of you, that would be the second. Then the last is that standard of care. I truly think we're not there yet, but I think it should be. I think it should be the standard of care that we have this technology in our hospital system, that we're leveraging and giving better care, because I really think that is going to be huge. If we can leverage these technologies to give a better output for our patients, for our industry, then it's worth the investment.
So let me repeat them back. And I think it's such a powerful business justification. I can do the operation more efficiently or the procedure more efficiently. The patient go home earlier with a better outcome that's going to save the hospital money and allow the patient to recover better, more quickly, more effectively. And at the same time, if indeed it's 4 a.m. and I'm not at my best and I haven't had the coffee hasn't done the right thing for me, I'm going to get these reminders to make me a better physician, a better surgeon, or whatever it may be. I just find that a terribly compelling case. And I just, as in my, so let's just go to 2030 for a minute. Let's run it out the clock for 5 or 6 years. Is there going to be a division between the Mayo Clinics and the Mount Sinai's and the big medical institutes that are going to have all this technology, going to be using it and take a leapfrog forward, or really are a large majority of hospitals going to come along because they're being driven by maybe the medical? What happens? Do we get a bifurcated medical system, or does it all, does the whole tide rise all boats, as they say?
Ooh, I love that. Ooh, this is awesome. Good question. The heart of me would want to say that the high tide would raise everyone. The business brain in me says what will probably happen is, because the technology gap is so strong and the efficiency can help lower costs in so many ways, that hospital systems that are small, that cannot adapt and do not have the funds to put money into these resources, will be purchased by the bigger hospitals or will be closed. And so I had emergency rooms, and having AI, if I had that today, those emergency rooms, I would run them so differently, so more efficient. I would be able to bring price down. I would be able to educate my patients a lot further, and I would have a definite advantage over a lot of hospital systems. And I personally think I would be able to market better, help my patients more, have better outcomes, and eventually hospital systems would either want to buy me out or gone because of AI.
Let me close with my final question. I know Tim has a couple he wanted to pose, but I often sit back on the medical side and I think, who's really going to drive this? Is it the medical industry, the people that make these particular devices? Is it the medical schools that are educating future doctors and are responsible for making sure they're using the latest and greatest? Is it the doctors themselves that say, listen, I just want to do a better operation. I want to do a better procedure in the emergency room? Is it the hospitals that say, I'm saving so much money because we're using this that I want to do it? Who's going to drive this, or is it all of the above? I just an open question to you.
Oh, this is great. Here's what I think. I think as time passes, it will adapt faster and faster. The resistance to change individuals will be out of power per se, or not with us. But the younger kids, I look at kids and I'll say this. I look at my 8-year-old stepson and I'm thinking he will allow a robot to take care of him. He will totally say, yeah, I'm fine with the robot talking to me and giving me healthcare, where everyone on this call and listening probably would say, hell no, I would not let a robot take care of me. I want that human. And so that alone tells you that in the future, we will adapt to this. I say we as a society. What's bringing it forward? I think, to Tim's point, as these chips get cheaper and cheaper, the technology gets to the point where really it doesn't cost anything. It gets to the point where we can start doing things that maybe today I could not do because it costs too much. But if we are able to bring the cost down, the second advice that I tell startups is, when you start your startup, do not overvalue yourself. Don't make it to the point where you cost so much that now when you bring that technology to the hospital system, it's so expensive, it's not going to happen. Keep it down cheap so that way we can get these technologies. The other thing, you're going to laugh at this statement, but I think us as a society are going to look around the world and say, oh my gosh, third world countries, developed countries are doing X, Y, Z with AI in healthcare. Why are we not doing it here in the United States? So I see a big pressure coming outside of the US, pushing the US to make some changes because the rest of the world is doing it. And I really see that.
I think it's brilliant. This is wonderful. Tim, I think you got a couple of questions you might
want
to ask.
We're close to our end of time here. I will just ask one, where is your website that people can actually see where your books are? And because you've written some incredibly important books, including the most recent one on the Vision Pro in medical, which I find fascinating. How can people reach you?
Yes, sir. It's pretty easy. It's Harvey, Harvey, Castro, Castro, MD as in medicaldoctor.com. And if you go to the resource page, I literally have a digital twin of me, of all my books, every interview, and literally 24/7, you can ask me a question of, hey, Harvey, what do you think of AI and VR in healthcare? Or, hey, what do you think of this rabbit, R1 that's out there in healthcare? And my whole book, everything is on there for free. And then you can just literally have a conversation with me.
I just want to say a hearty thanks from both Tim and I. You know, we've been doing our podcast for about a year and a half, a little more than a year and a half now. We've had many interesting discussions, case studies, speakers, but this is a fascinating topic, and you're a well-qualified and extremely competent individual, and we're just delighted to have you on the episode. I'd actually like Tim in X number of years, 2-3 years, to bring Harvey back and kind of rehash this just to see what we said today, how it plays out tomorrow. But Harvey, from our side, many kind thanks, and thank you so much for all you're doing to help all those in need.
And for
thank you guys, it's been an honor to be here. Thank you both. And
for those of you who are listening, I encourage you to go to his site, and especially to look at some of the books that he's done. They are really great, forward thinking, and he's a great resource. With that, we'll log off for this week, and we look forward to being with you in the next 2 weeks. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening to Business Success in a Virtual World. Barton and I have helped global companies successfully develop and implement strategies to utilize these new technologies. For more information or to contact us, please visit ismguide.com and select Metaverse Resource Center. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast on your preferred platform.